Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the voter, to hear directly from the candidates. We took questions from the community via email and social media, and now we get to hear their views on the issues that are important to us leading up to the primary election on May 21st. Today's guest is Tracy Hopper. She is a candidate for jailer. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So starting off, could you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
I am a lifelong resident of Franklin County. I have been married to my husband for 29 years, Terry Hopper. He is retired from the city. I have 2 grown children. I have 2 grandchildren. And I have worked at the Franklin County Jail. I've worked in pretrial services, and I've had a passion for this office, running this office.
Okay. What is it you like to do?
Farming.
Farming?
We keep my children. I grew up on a farm, 267 acres out in Bald Knob, and we raised beef cattle. My children showed cattle. I showed cattle, the beef cattle in the fairs, and my granddaughter is now picking up in those footsteps. And
Yeah.
she is. She has 3 heifers that she's breaking and getting ready for a fair, and she goes out and works with them, and those are the things that I enjoy, making sure that my grandchildren, have that same type of upbringing that I had.
Okay. Well, what was it that inspired you to run for jailer?
When after high school, I went to work at the Franklin County Jail, and I didn't go to college until I was 29 years old. When I went to work out there, I started in the office, and I couldn't work on the secured side until I turned 21. And once I turned 21, I moved over to the secured side of the facility, and I really liked it. I had originally planned to use it as a stepping stone to go to law enforcement, and I decided that corrections is what I liked and where I wanted to stay. After being there, and when I began a family, working those long hours, was something that having a young family was hard to do, working 12, 14-hour shifts a day.
Right.
So my desire to work in corrections and run for the office of jailer is from my experience.
Okay. And so you do have quite a bit of experience. You've been there since you were 18?
Yeah. And when I left the jail, by the time I left, I was 23 years old, and I was in charge of a $6.5 million. I wasn't 23 when I left. I was older when I left. But by the time I was 23 years old, I was in charge of a $6.5 million facility. I'd worked on the secured side of the jail and moved up from a shift supervisor, a corporal, to a sergeant and a staff sergeant.
Okay.
While I worked there.
Well, so that pretty much addresses the question about your experience. So for those who don't know, could you tell us the responsibilities of the jailer?
The responsibility of the jailer is for the care, custody, and control. And we say, when we say care, it's pretty broad. It's not just, making sure that they get in there and they stay locked up. We have to provide a service to the inmates that are brought in. If we have our local inmates, educational, religious services, we have to provide to them AA and NA. There are so many programs out there. If someone comes in and they need to have a service for whatever they were locked up for, anger management, some type of family counseling. These are things that can be and used to be provided at the jail. I think that, since COVID, a lot of things have disappeared and not shown and resurfaced yet. That's one of the biggest things that I want to see come back to the jail.
Okay. So what would you say the best characteristics are for a jailer?
Hands-on experience, boots on the ground, working environment, bringing to the table the knowledge, the passion to want to be in there in that position. And bringing experience to the table, that is something that the jail is, lacking now. So if they were to have an experienced jailer and a leader, I feel like that we could move forward in a very positive direction.
Okay. What do you think the biggest issue facing the jail is at this time?
Probably the lack of programs.
Okay.
The sheriff's office having it now, they have recently had the pay scale went from $17 to $20 an hour. They have increased the number of officers, which, was probably dangerously low 6 months ago. So they have been able to hire officers. Retaining good officers that's a big issue. Training is a big issue, but I would have to go with rebuilding the programs that are out there.
Okay. Where do you stand on changing in-person visitation to video-only visitation?
There's, I've met with some people or I haven't met with them, they've approached me about this and said, we can no longer visit our loved ones. We can't come out there. And will that open back up? I don't know that it's been a huge outcry from the public to open that back up to in-person visitation. Maybe when the staffing is up and secure and we have the numbers that we need, that would be something that I think that, we should definitely look into. Clergy and educational programs are having difficulties getting in there and running some of the programs that they have. But the visitation, that subject definitely needs to be visited again.
Okay.
It's a cost.
Yeah.
If the inmate has to visit on an iPad or a tablet, it's a cost to them, when they do that. So, they're already experiencing probably some financial difficulties. So I think it definitely needs to be,
Okay.
revisited.
All right. What actions would you recommend to improve contractual services with the medical provider at the jail?
I think that any medical provider that we have needs to be vetted a little better. And, we have a fiscal court that, wants to be a part of this, and they should be a part of this. It shouldn't just be the action of the jailer to decide that this contract is, where we should go.
Right.
It should be, there should be a jail task force. They have one now. And it should definitely be looked at transparently by the fiscal court and, possibly, a couple members of the community look at this. The jail could be our biggest liability or they could be an asset, and, one of the biggest tickets out there is medical care.
Okay.
That's what we pay a lot of money for is medical care.
And how do you ensure that the medical program is adequate to meet the needs of the jail?
That is through the contract that we would make with a medical provider. Mental health is a huge issue, and it has been, and it's growing. And we need to make sure that not only the medical part of this, but the mental health part of this is addressed.
Okay.
The same as, you have to be transparent and you have to use the members of fiscal court. It needs to be a group decision and a group effort.
Okay. And how would you recommend to raise revenue at the jail?
So they've just recently gotten the contract back from Anderson County. And that, will be visited, every 30 days. Sometimes you could get more of a liability come through the back door than a profit. If something happens from an inmate from another county, then it happened in our jail in our county. The SAP program, the substance abuse program,
right,
that generates money. But don't ever get in the jail business to make money. It's not a money-making process.
right.
You should just try to sustain and operate in the black. Don't get in there and think that you're going to make money. It's not. It's not a money-making business. But the SAP programs has a per diem. The more programs you have, the more per diem per day that you will receive from housing state inmates.
Okay.
Federal inmates, they pay us a high dollar to house their inmates. We haven't had any for a while.
Okay. What programming, you've talked about some of the programming, but what other programming would you have or offer?
So the substance abuse program is huge. A reentry program is good, and that just helps individuals that are going back into society that have probably spent more than 18 months in a jail.
Okay.
Would help them, with their family. Getting, maybe they had a bad time with their family. We need to build some relationships back out in the community before we send them back out. Make sure that they are trained to get a job. Also, they need to make sure they have a resume. They need to have job interview skills. They need to, they can receive an education while they're in jail. These are programs that are needed. Domestic violence classes are needed. Educational, they need to be able to meet with their children, before they go back into the home. A lot of times they could go back into a stressful situation, and if we haven't prepared them at least a little bit as to what that's going to be like, then they may not be successful, and
Right.
they may come back in.
Right.
The goal is always for them not to return. The goal is to, reduce the recidivism rate.
Okay. You've talked about staffing issues. You've talked about pay. Are there any other things you can see that would help with the staffing?
Right now, they do a 8-hour shift. In the past, they were doing a 12-hour shift, and it was hard for the officers to spend time with their family. Making sure that they get their days off so they can spend those 2 days with their family. When I worked at the jail, we had a different type. It was a law enforcement schedule, and there was a 4-day stretch each month that you were off. And it was because that's a high stress job that we're doing.
Sure.
So if you get them, and we can work this schedule out again, and where they're having almost a week off with their family every month, that makes a big difference. They have time to unwind. They can make medical appointments. It reduces the rate of people calling in sick if they have these extra days. It was a schedule that we ran for over 2 years, and it worked.
Okay.
It really did. It requires 4 shifts, 2 nights and 2 days, but it's doable.
Okay.
It's really doable.
What is your plan to ensure equal treatment of male and female inmates?
So a lot of times the female inmates aren't offered trustee jobs only because the male to female officer is, you have to have 1 female on shift. We like to have 2, but a lot of times they think it's just more convenient for the men to do the trustee positions. But I think that making sure the women have an equal amount of time to come out, even if it's just to work in the laundry, to work in the kitchen, or come out and be a nighttime custodial person, these are the things that need to be done. They need to be looked at,
Okay.
As well.
What changes would you make in policy to hold inmates accountable for criminal activity in the jail?
That is a law enforcement. So every officer that works there is a sworn peace officer. We have had in the past, we have the right to charge within the facility. Beyond the walls of the jail, is something different. But we have the sheriff's office, the city police, depending on what it is. There is a policy for making sure that things are presented to a grand jury, just depending on what the charges are.
Sure.
But, each officer, it takes a sworn oath through district court, or, sometimes upstairs. But, we do charge there, handling certain types of evidence and drugs and things. I think it's a good idea to have law enforcement come in, the sheriff's office, because we're not the police.
Right.
We are deputy jailers, and we're not the police. So someone that is trained to do that should be who comes in and does that.
Okay. Could you tell us about a time that you dealt calmly with a high-stress issue? And it doesn't have to be in the job. I would imagine with your
Well,
cows.
Well, I currently work in a middle school.
Oh,
so
okay.
we have high stress issues.
I can imagine
sometimes. There's my latest and new thing that I practice a lot, and a lot of it has to do with farming, is you'll make a better decision tomorrow.
Okay.
The knee-jerk reaction, you'll make a better decision tomorrow. If it's something that can wait, then
Think on it.
before you make that decision.
Okay.
A really quick decision sometimes doesn't turn out to be the best. In a high stress, out there at the jail, if we needed something, you follow policy and procedure.
Yeah.
You always follow policy and procedure.
All right. So could you talk a little bit about training with the staff? How do you make sure that they're properly trained?
Your trainer has to be properly trained. If we've not spent that time with him or her, then, we need to spend that time.
Okay.
We you would go for 2 weeks and be trained. You would go to Shelby campus at the U of L, and you would be trained there. You would stay 2 weeks, come home on the weekend. And that, because of cost, has not been, something that we've done. But training is really important, and I believe that it can be done in-house as long as we have met every requirement that the Department of Corrections says we have to meet.
Sure.
That's important, that we're following the Department of Corrections.
Okay. Do you have any goals that you would like to reach as jailer?
I would, as the jailer, like to have the jail back to a place where we had our educational programs, our, SAP program, and we had 3 or 4 different programs that were running out there: educational, family programs, anger management programs. I want to have all of those come back. I would like to be back on the top of the list again of the highest rated jail in the state of Kentucky, having graduated GED graduations.
Okay. So now it's your turn. You get to look right into the camera and speak to the viewers at home. Tell them why you would make the best jailer, how to contact you, and whatever you'd like to say.
Okay, thank you. Franklin County, on May the 21st, you have a big decision to make. Daily jail operations have not changed from 10 years ago to today, and they won't change in 10 years from now. The care, custody, and control has to be the forefront of our jail. There's no amount of experience that can be replaced with a technology. We have to remain present in the jail. We have to make sure that we are being a good steward, and I will be a good steward of your tax dollars. And on May the 21st, vote Tracy Hopper. If you would like to go out to my website, tracyhopper.com, and I have a Facebook page, Tracy Hopper for Jailer. Go out and visit my page. Ask me some questions. I would love to hear from you.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for your time today, and I'm sure that our viewers appreciated hearing from you. And please remember to vote on May 21st.